If you're interested in living a long and healthy life, then stay tuned in for this show. We have an expert on health and longevity with us, Nobel Prize nominee, Dr. Joel Wallach. Dr. Wallach, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Jill. It's always good to be with you.
Well, likewise. You have a lot. We've got a lot to cover here. You're an author of 5 books, and you've got a 6th one coming out in the spring.
Yes.
That's exciting. And the latest book is called?
God Bless America.
God Bless America. That's beautiful. In the second half of the show, we'll talk about some of the information in these books. And not to mention, you've written research papers, hundreds of them, scientific research papers on health and longevity.
That's correct. And wrote a big textbook, big 1,000-page job you'll still find in medical school libraries. And the whole purpose of that, Jill, was to try and educate doctors on the fact that we could actually prevent and cure diseases in human beings with nutritional formulas.
Absolutely. So you believe that to be true? Nutrition, is that through the food we eat?
No, unfortunately you can't do it with the food we eat. And of course, you kind of came back at me with, you believe that. And it's very, very interesting that medical doctors and people who are professors and trained medical doctors, people who are experts on various things will oftentimes say that when they're challenged, there's no evidence, that there's no scientific support to suggest or prove that you can prevent and cure diseases with nutritional formulas. Well, anybody who says that's an absolute fool, because there's scurvy, which can be prevented and cured with vitamin C, right?
Right.
There's rickets that can be prevented and cured with vitamin D. And then there's anemia, which can be prevented and cured with iron and folic acid and vitamin B12 and copper. And then there's diseases like beriberi and congestive heart failure that can be prevented and cured with vitamin B1 or thiamine. There's pellagra with things like the dementia that goes along with that, and the diarrhea and the dermatitis, which can be prevented and cured with vitamin B3 or niacin. And then there's night blindness, which can be prevented and cured with vitamin A. And you keep going on further. What about hip fractures, which kill people, which are caused by a calcium deficiency and osteoporosis? And I could go on and on and on, because there's 90 essential nutrients
that are needed.
And if you don't get them, you get diseases.
Right. So it's pretty black and white.
Oh, it's very black and white. And so any doctor who would tell a patient who comes to them asking about, is this true, can I prevent and cure disease with vitamins and minerals, and the doctor says, oh, no, that's just that quack Wallach out there talking about that, they're a fool. And so you would never want to go back to a doctor who's a fool.
Right. Or someone who doesn't have that training in nutrition, because let's face it, we put gas in our car to make it run, yet people overlook the day-to-day nutrition, the food they're eating, and obviously the supplements that they need to take in order to get those 90 essential minerals, everything they need to be healthy.
Well, Jill, the reason why, one of the many reasons why I entitled my first tape, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, and the follow-up book, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, is that doctors can't claim ignorance, because in their basic biochemistry books, their basic physiology books that they get in freshman biology as a pre-med student, talks about all these diseases that can be prevented and cured with vitamins and minerals. And it's not like they're totally uninformed. They choose not to be concerned with those things because there's very little money in it for them, and there's no laws requiring doctors to cure people. There's absolutely no laws requiring doctors to cure people when there are cures available, so they don't. There's no money in cures, and the 250,000 pharmaceuticals, the prescription drugs that are available to doctors to treat people, other than maybe antibiotics, there's none of the 250,000 drugs which are designed to cure anything. Not a single one of them cures anything. They're all designed to milk the medical insurance system, be it the government system or the private system. And it's just unfortunate that there's no laws requiring doctors to cure people if there are cures available.
It sounds like they're dealing with the symptoms rather than the cause, and the cause is what would cure a particular ailment.
Well, you're exactly right, Jill, and of course there's no money in cures, and so they're looking at treating the symptoms over long periods of time, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and this is where the money's at. The drugs, as we've already said, are designed to milk the system. A good example would be congestive heart failure. The traditional orthodox medical approach to dealing with congestive heart failure is the drug called digitalis, which interestingly enough comes from an herb, the foxglove, and diuretics, which deals with the emergency life-saving process of getting the heart to beat nicely and regularly and efficiently, get rid of the excess fluids in the chest so you can live. but then they don't deal with the cause. And if there's no organic problems with the heart and the heart valves, there's no liver disease or kidney disease, and there's this unexplained congestive heart failure, almost always this is due to what's called wet beriberi and a deficiency of thiamine and vitamin B1. So when I treat my patients with congestive heart failure, not only do they give them the digitalis and the diuretics, but I also give them large doses of thiamine and vitamin B1, and almost on a regular basis they're able to, over a period of weeks or months, slowly wean off of the drugs and just stay on the vitamins and minerals. And
you also mentioned herbs. You talk about vitamins, minerals, and
absolutely.
foxtail.
Yeah, foxglove.
Foxglove.
Yeah. Now, herbs are kind of an interesting thing, Jill. Herbs are plant medicines. Many of the orthodox prescription medicines come from the active principles of herbs that actually work. Herbs are plant medicines, they're not nutrition, yet many people will say, well, I don't need to take vitamins and minerals because I use herbs. Well, herbs are great plant medicines. They actually do things, but they don't give you enough calcium. They don't give you enough selenium. They don't give you copper and vitamin A and all the B vitamins. So you can't depend on herbs for nutrients, but they're great medicines.
Okay, they're useful as medicine, and then on the side of nutrition, we need all the vitamins and minerals.
Yes.
In the appropriate amounts in our system to function properly.
Yes, well, yes, Jill, they're called essential nutrients because our bodies cannot manufacture them. We need them every day. We either have to consume them as food or supplement with them. And if we don't, we get all these horrible degenerative diseases, many of which are debilitating, many of which are life-threatening. And this is why they're called essential nutrients. If we didn't need them, if they didn't prevent diseases, then they wouldn't be called essential nutrients. And unfortunately, plants cannot manufacture minerals. Now, plants can manufacture vitamins, plants can manufacture amino acids and fatty acids like omega-3s and 6s. And so this has lulled many people into thinking all they have to do is just eat well, and they can get everything they need. But 2/3 of the essential nutrients are minerals. 2/3 are minerals. Really? This amounts to over 600 different diseases you can get potentially if you're deficient in all the minerals. You really won't last very long if you're deficient in all of the 60 essential minerals, and absolutely essential.
And as you were talking about earlier, people are not getting this from nutrition because they're assuming that everything is found in the food, and the plants that would normally take this from the soil, if the soil is depleted, then the plant can't grow these minerals, these essential nutrients, then we're not going to get it in our food.
That's right. And a plant, Jill, only needs 9 nutrients, 9 minerals. 16 nutrients, 9 minerals. We need 60 minerals.
Oh, so you're saying the plant could still grow, and we think it's a wonderful plant.
Well,
it has all the nutrients.
It's bright green, yellow carrots, and wonderful red apple. Everything looks beautiful because the plant only needs 9 minerals. We need 60. Where are we going to get the other 51? The plant doesn't need them.
So we can't assume because a carrot looks like a carrot that it has all the nutrients in it.
Exactly. Now you got it.
Okay, okay.
Nutritional minerals do not occur in a uniform blanket around the crust of the earth. They never did. Nutritional minerals occur in veins like chocolate and chocolate ripple ice cream. Or they occur in veins like gold and silver. Okay. And so even in virgin soil where nothing has been grown from a standpoint of agriculture, and there might be a few minerals in there, it depends on what row your ear of corn comes from, how many minerals you're going to get. Because so even in the same field, for instance, row number 1 might have 0 nutritional minerals in it. Row number 5 might have 8. Row number 10 might have 20. Row number 15 might have 0. Row number 20 might have 0.
So it's that specific, depending on where the location that you're growing your vegetables.
And so it depends on the row in the field from which your corn or your slice of bread, the wheat in your slice of bread, or your soybeans or your apple came from.
So we're really taking our chances then, that when we're eating our food, we're getting a mixed salad of not only fruits and vegetables, of what's in those fruits and vegetables.
Exactly. You can guarantee you're going to have folic acid and beta-carotene and vitamin C in the mixed greens for a salad. But how many minerals in there? Well, you know there's magnesium if it's green, because magnesium is required to make chlorophyll, which is what's green. That's the only thing you can guarantee about it.
This is excellent. You know what I'd like to do in the second half of our show, we're going to take a commercial break, but talk about your background and how your interest got sparked in this field and why you've now come out with 4 books, hundreds of scientific research papers, and you've been nominated for a Nobel Prize on your excellent work on health and longevity.
Thank you, Jill. Look forward to it.
Okay, great. I'm your host, Jill Hewlett, and we're talking about a healthy and long life with Nobel Prize nominee and expert Dr. Joel Wallach. Thank you for joining us again, Dr. Wallach.
You bet, Jill.
Well, we just were talking the first half of in your show about the importance of minerals, these essential nutrients, in order to live a long and healthy life.
It's impossible to live any time without them.
It's like it's impossible to drive the car without gas in it.
Exactly. Some nutrients you need instantly, like oxygen. You won't live but 4 minutes without oxygen. If you don't have water, you might be able to live 3 to 5 days. Without food, without calories, you won't last 30 days. And then without calcium, you might last a couple of years. Without selenium, you might last 90 days. But you need them all.
Absolutely. Now, you're saying that people do have the capacity to live to be over 100.
We do know for a fact that human beings, including you and I, have the genetic capacity to live well beyond 100. People who are experts in genetics and gerontology who study these things tell us that we all have the genetic capacity to live well beyond 100. And the short reason why we don't live to be 100 on the average, instead of 70, give or take a few years, is that we do too many of the bad things and not enough of the good things. That's the shortest way of saying it. And I would imagine that among nutrition, obviously that being the base and the foundation, the most important, then the issues of proper rest and not carrying a lot of stress. And not stepping on the landmines of life.
So if a person is suffering from a lot of stress, hectic lifestyle, not getting a lot of sleep, then I imagine their bodies are using up these resources that they have within
That is correct.
more quickly.
And so you need more. When you're under stress, you actually need 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times more per day of these essential nutrients than you do when everything's perfect.
Now, obviously we're covering as much as we can in a half hour, but you do have resources where people can learn more about this. And reading your books, we've got a lineup here of The Rare Earths, Forbidden Cures. You're, I think, most famous, right? Dead Doctors Don't Lie,
Yes.
which you've got on audio cassette as well.
Yes.
And Let's Play Doctor, as well as you've got Let's Play Herbal Doctor. And your latest book that was inspired after 9/11, God Bless America.
Yes, that's a book is actually designed, Jill, to pull everything into one book under one cover, what you need to do to live a comfortable 100-plus years of life. It covers everything from what to eat, what not to eat, how to supplement properly. It covers the ways to see a mugging coming and how to survive and fend off muggings, and how to survive attacks from biological and chemical and nuclear warfare.
Environmental influences.
Environmental stuff, absolutely. As well as the financial. Most people...
Can I take the copy here? Can I have that?
Well, sure.
I'd like to have that.
And the earlier you start, the better.
Yes, yeah.
But most people think, well, if I eat organic food and I do this and do that, I'll live to be 100, which you can do. But most people, by the time they reach age 65, they're financially broke. And there's nothing worse than being broke when you're 65 when you retire than being broke when you're 100. And so you have to be aware that if you're really going to make a conscious effort to live to be a healthful 100-year-old, you have to make a conscious effort on how to financially get there too.
Right, they go together, health and wealth. Now, just talking about starting earlier is better. An infant takes their first, what would you call, batch of nutrients, of minerals from the mother. Is that correct?
From the time they're first fertilized cell, and they have now become a zygote, and the answer is yes, they're getting nutrition from their mom at that instant.
So if the mother doesn't,
pregnancy.
if she doesn't have it to give the child, like if it's not in her system, then she can't give it to the child.
That's correct.
And I would assume that's why there are birth defects that can be attributed to nutritional
You're
deficiency.
exactly right. Well, we've eliminated in animals almost all, I'd say 99% of all the birth defects that are thought to be genetic in humans. If you look at the rate of birth defects in humans, in the human population in the United States and Canada, 1 out of every 33 babies is born with a physical birth defect, such as a cleft palate or cleft lip or spina bifida, a heart defect, or some terrible defect, Down syndrome. 1 out of 33. But because we put all the nutrients in the feed for animals, only 1 out of 500,000 gets a birth defect.
Right.
So the animals are getting a much better deal.
Really? Now, you grew up on a farm, too.
Yes. Actually started out in a little cattle farm or a beef farm in Missouri. And it was very enlightening as a young kid to watch and observe all the nutritional things that we did for livestock and we didn't do them for ourselves.
Interesting. And why was that? We're giving better food and the right ratio of nutrients to animals and not to ourselves. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, well, I thought it was. When I was 14 years old, this first surprised me that we were spending so much time and effort on animals that were going to be shipped to market in 6 months and slaughtered and eaten, and we wanted to live to be 100 without any diseases. We had insurance to pay for health care. We didn't have insurance to pay for health care for animals. And so the purpose of the vitamins and minerals was to eliminate diseases. And in human beings, we would just wait till we got them and then go to a doctor. And it was two different systems.
Isn't that amazing? And I wonder, like, this is led you to veterinarian school too, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Because you were a veterinarian before you became a care physician.
Yes. Well, basically, I started out in agriculture. You know, every farm boy wants to go back and do better than his dad in the farm, and so I started out in agriculture. And my minor was in field crops and soils, so I learned a lot about soils and geology. And my major was in animal nutrition, and learned a lot about nutrition in animals and how to prevent diseases in animals.
And that can't be easy because an animal can't talk to you. Whereas a human can say, you know, I've got an ache or pain here, these are my symptoms, this is what I've been dealing with. I think you'd have to be a bit more of a detective dealing with the care of animals.
Well, you do have to be a better detective, I think, than most human doctors. And also, you have a lot of help. For instance, dairy farmers, they weigh the amount of milk each day that's given by a cow. And if you give them nutrients and you notice that their milk production goes up 50% just by adding a few pennies worth of nutrients, and they make an extra $10 a day and it only costs you 5 cents, well, that's a good deal.
Right.
Where in humans, there's no such daily monitoring, how many eggs are produced or how much weight is gained every day by cattle in the feedlot and so forth. And so it's a much more scientific approach to caring for animals for their health and production.
Then people, you just made me think of how people over time gain weight, they get older, they whatever.
Eat junk food.
Eat junk food, and they don't, without monitoring, 20 years, 30 years later saying, look at the state I'm in.
Suddenly this happened. Yeah.
And then they think, oh, well, it's okay, it's because I'm getting older.
Yes,
without realizing that that is not the case. If we had been taking our daily account of our actions and what we're getting in our diet.
And noticed it 30 years earlier.
Right, absolutely. I'm not sure how true this is, but I heard in the East, doctors are paid as long as they're keeping their patients in good health on a preventative level. And once the patient gets ill, they no longer have to pay the doctor. So the doctors are really well versed in that preventative medicine because that's where they actually get recognized. It's when their patients get ill that they are now responsible to get that patient better. And I just thought that was interesting. Whether that's true or not, it's a really neat philosophy.
It's actually an old Oriental system. It's not practiced much today, but it is an ancient Oriental system. It's kind of an old version of an HMO where you just paid all the time, and they were responsible, the doctors were responsible for keeping you healthy. And it was kind of an HMO system. That's where the idea for the HMOs came from.
Huh.
And it's just unfortunate that they use expensive medicines that are designed to deal with symptoms instead of getting rid of the problem. If HMOs were dealing with getting rid of the problems, HMOs would be a very financially viable system.
Isn't that interesting? Wow. So after veterinarian school, and you worked with a number of research products, I know some funded by the government, is that correct?
That's correct.
And where you learned through autopsies?
Yes, actually I was working on a grant from the National Institutes of Health in the U.S. It was $7.5 million, which was a lot of money during the 1960s. That'd be like $100 million today. And did over 17,500 autopsies and over 454 species of animals from many of the zoos around North America, and 3,000 human beings for comparison. And what I learned, Jill, was that every animal and every human being who dies of natural causes dies of a nutritional deficiency disease. Amazing. And it was so obvious. It was an epiphany. It was one of those great discoveries that you weren't really looking for. We were looking for pollution problems in the mid-60s, and this nutritional deficiency problem kind of jumped out at us. And I got so excited and went to medical doctors and said, look what I found. Look how important nutritional problems are. And they say, well, there's no evidence. Back to that same old story. There's no evidence that nutritional problems cause diseases. There's no evidence that nutrition and supplements can prevent and cure diseases. And so it was very obvious that I was a failure trying to convince doctors of the value of nutritional supplementation. So I went back to school and became a physician in 1978, began to treat human patients myself.
Amazing.
And that was the whole purpose of becoming a physician, was to use what I learned in animals on people.
Wonderful. Your life is your message there. You're putting to use your own experience.
Yes.
And you were then going into medicine, prescribing to your patients what they needed on a nutritional level that they weren't getting to cure their ailment, their disease.
Yes.
And,
and to prevent diseases down the line.
Okay, as a preventative measure. And now you have a line of products available where people can get this in very simple, easy to take form. Prior to that, though, you were sending them probably to the health food store to get a bit of this and that.
Exactly. What I depended upon was all the companies were out there, and there's thousands of companies that provide various sources of vitamins, minerals, and essential fatty acids and amino acids. But it was very obvious after time that I wasn't getting the results in humans that I was getting in animals, because nobody was really paying attention to the details. When people think about nutrition for people, they talk in terms of calories and amino acids and protein and percentages of fat and carbohydrates. Right. And if you talk to the general public, what did your doctor tell you to do nutritionally? You say, well, just eat my 4 food groups and
beware my cholesterol.
Beware the cholesterol, keep the fat levels down, and that's it. Because doctors, again, want people to believe that in a Western society we're not susceptible to nutritional deficiency diseases because we have so much food and high quality food that we shouldn't be subject to nutritional deficiencies, which you're only going to find in third world countries. Well, that's not true, again, because plants cannot manufacture minerals, which make up 2/3 of our essential nutrients. And most of the degenerative diseases that people suffer from are mineral deficiencies, such as cardiomyopathy, heart disease, a selenium deficiency, anemias, which can be iron or copper deficiency. You get things like high blood pressure, which can be a calcium deficiency, osteoporosis, arthritis, calcium and sulfur and magnesium deficiencies, and on and on and on. And so people have really been shorted when it comes to good advice from doctors. Between Canada and the United States, we spend more money for health care than all the other nations in the world put together. And yet, we don't rank anywhere in the top 10. Neither Canada or the United States ranks in the top 10 when it comes to health and longevity.
Oh, dear. And also, just knowing how to combine these things is not only just knowing they exist and then the combinations and how much you need.
Yes.
You've simplified that.
Well,
I also heard that you can't, minerals, vitamins don't work without the appropriate mineral cofactors, and minerals can't work without this underlying mineral matrix, some sort of bone matrix.
Yes.
I don't understand, obviously, as well as you do, but I do understand that there is...
You've got the message.
There's a puzzle that needs to connect.
And you need them all, and just taking, people will tell me, Joe, I take a lot of vitamin C. Well, that's fine, but what about the other 89 essential nutrients? And so you just can't take a lot of one thing and expect it to solve all problems. And so you need to consciously take them all, just like we put oil and good gas and have nice air filters for our cars. You need to be concerned about all the essential nutrients. And if you consciously supplement with them, the odds of you having these terrible diseases are reduced to almost zero. For instance, just by taking a good multiple, you can reduce your risk of colon cancer by 75%. 75%. Is there a drug that will do that? There's not a drug that will reduce your risk of colon cancer by 1%. Can you reduce your risk of colon cancer by any measurable percent with a high fiber diet? No. Zero chance. And yet doctors will still say eat a high fiber diet can reduce your risk of colon cancer. That's an absolute lie.
Amazing, amazing. I want to actually add to this too before our time wraps up that athletes also can be at risk, because I didn't understand this before, and being fairly athletic and doing a lot of sweating, not realizing that I would lose this mineral-rich fluid that's in my body, and it needs to be replaced.
Yeah, we don't just sweat water. As you've learned, Jill, we sweat, and that's why our sweat tastes like salt.
Salty, right.
Because our sweat is a soup. It contains all the minerals that are in our body. And if you're constantly sweating things out and you're not replacing them on a conscious level and depending on them being in your food, you're doomed. And as a result, if you just look at the number of professional athletes who have lived to be 100, there are zero. There's not a single professional athlete who's ever lived to be 100. And if athletics was really as good for you as a lot of people would like you to believe, there should be a significant percentage of professional athletes live to be 100.
Long and healthy.
And there's none.
Interesting. That's amazing. Now, for people to learn more about this, I know you're speaking at the Whole Life Food Expo, Life show
Yes.
this weekend. And I know by the time the viewers see this, you'll actually be on the road again. You're traveling almost, what, how many?
300 days a year.
300 days a year. You're on the radio how many days?
Actually, 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday.
Answering calls,
Yes.
sharing your information. Lovely.
It's an interactive talk show.
When we get the right nutrition, our system works well.
What a concept.
This is great. Well, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank our viewers for joining us, the Body, Mind, Spirit, and Motion show. Once again, with us this evening was Dr. Joel Wallach, Nobel Prize nominee. Thanks. We'll see you again next week.